Hi, my name is Moss Nix, and welcome to my TEL 215 Intro to Child and Adolescent Development Analysis of Learning. Section 1, New Learning. One of the biggest pieces of information I'd like to take with me from this course is how sleep deprivation can affect a child or adolescent's ability to function. It's super important that we understand the major health problems associated with sleep deprivation. These are things such as obesity, anxiety, depression, and behavioral issues. This has a lot of significance to me as a future educator so that I can understand when school policies should be shifted and what I can do as a teacher to help my students get enough sleep and be able to function. Another piece of new information that does not have a lot of significance to me, but was very interesting to learn about, is the history of childhood. In our course textbook, Child Development, published in 2019 by Robert S. Fieldman, Chapter 1 discusses the idea of childhood during the Middle Ages. Fieldman discusses how some scholars believe that children in medieval Europe were viewed as miniature yet somewhat imperfect adults, being dressed in adult clothing and lacking any type of special treatment. I think this is the coolest piece of information that I've learned. I think it's very interesting to see how childhood changes over time and how we all view it differently in different parts of the world. Section 2, Challenges. My main challenge that I will be facing as a future educator is how my identity as a transgender man will fit into schools. This can be seen in all different types of aspects, with how my coworkers interact with me, how my students interact with me, finding a job in the first place, and how school policy is going to affect that. It's very scary to see how all these policies and laws are being changed without the input of the community it will directly impact. It's super important to me that I speak up. I understand that not everyone might be as safe of a space as I am, or have as good of a support network as I do, which is why I strive to speak up no matter what. Because I'm wanting to go into upper elementary and middle school as well as secondary school as a teacher, it's important that I understand the idea behind same-sex grouping. This is a phenomenon often seen in middle childhood. According to Chapter 13 of Child Development by Robert S. Fieldman, published in 2019, avoidance of the opposite sex becomes quite pronounced, to the degree that most social networks of boys and girls consist almost entirely of same-sex groupings. Since the development of the internet, information regarding gender identity is highly accessible. Kids are beginning to question themselves earlier than ever before, and this can be super distressing for young children during this age range who are being separated into the same-sex groupings. Section 3, My Future. The knowledge I've taken away from this class will help me in the future as I work with students from all different backgrounds. Understanding the fundamentals of childhood and adolescent psychology and development will help me support all of my students as much as possible, not only the ones that I can relate to in terms of background. A specific piece of knowledge I will be holding on to is the idea of sociocultural graded influences. In the course textbook Child Development by Robert S. Fieldman, published in 2019, Fieldman discusses the idea of sociocultural graded influences in Chapter 1. These make up a cohort that include ethnicity, social class, and many factors. A cohort is defined as a group of individuals who share a common trait such as a birth year. This can be seen, for example, in America as Generation Z. Section 4, Commitments. My main commitment is that I will continue to pursue knowledge so I can build on the framework learned in this course. One of the most important things I'll take away with me is remembering the knowledge learned in this course when interacting with children and adolescents. This is so I can better help them in their endeavors. Specifically, I want to remember this information when I work with children in middle childhood. In my opinion, because they're in a transition period in life, they might need some extra support. According to Chapter 12 of the textbook Child Development by Robert S. Fieldman, published in 2019. Russian developmentalist Lev Vygotsky proposed the idea of a zone of proximal development. This is otherwise known as a ZPD. A ZPD is the level at which a child can almost but not quite understand or perform a task. This develops during middle childhood, and some children may find themselves frustrated by the repetitive exposure of trying to conceptualize a task. Lucky for them, this repeated exposure eventually leads to the development and advancement of new skills. For my conclusion, I'd like to say thank you to my instructors who have helped me with every step of this course. They've been super accommodating throughout the semester, and I'd also like to say that the content here is super interesting. Generally, I have a hard time learning online, and this course has had me engaged 100% of the time. I also feel like through a lot of the assignments and discussion boards and projects, I've gotten to know my fellow classmates despite the fact that it is a fully online course. Once again, I'm Moss Nix. This is my TEL 215, Intro to Child and Adolescent Development, Analysis of Learning. Thank you guys and have a good night.